Hi, I'm Laura. Before I dive into my story, please like and subscribe to hear more. It all started on a quiet Tuesday evening. I was scrolling through our joint bank account statements, looking for a receipt, when I stumbled upon something odd. Large, unexplained transactions, all going to the same luxury boutique. My heart pounded as I wondered what this was about. "Jack, what are these transactions?" I asked that night, my voice tight with concern. He was sitting on the sofa, his eyes fixed on the TV screen, seemingly absorbed. "Oh, those," he replied, not even glancing my way. "It's nothing. Just some stuff for Mom." "Stuff for your mom? This much?" I couldn't mask the disbelief in my voice. "Yeah, Eleanor's been having a hard time. You know, after Dad passed away, she's been feeling low. I thought I'd cheer her up." Cheer her up? With thousands of dollars from our savings? My mind raced. This wasn't just a one-off act of kindness. It was a pattern. I felt a mix of anger and disbelief. "But why didn't you tell me, Jack? We're supposed to discuss these things." He sighed, finally turning off the TV and facing me. "I knew you'd react like this, Laura. Mom's sensitive. She's been through a lot. I didn't want to burden you." "Burden me? Jack, we're married. We share everything. Or at least I thought we did." He leaned forward, his face a mask of frustration. "Look, Laura, my mom has been emotionally blackmailing me. She keeps saying how lonely and miserable she is, how she has nothing to look forward to. I couldn't just stand by and watch." "So you thought blowing our savings on luxuries was the answer?" I couldn't keep the accusation from my voice. "Doesn't she have her own money?" "She does, but she says it's not enough. She's my mother, Laura. What was I supposed to do?" I stood up, pacing the room, trying to process everything. "We need to talk to her, Jack. This can't go on. We have our own needs, our own future to think about." He stood up too, his expression a mix of guilt and defensiveness. "I'll handle it, okay? Just give me some time." "No, Jack. I'll handle it. I need to know what's going on from her directly." The next day, I decided to pay a visit to Eleanor. Her house was as extravagant as the transactions suggested, filled with the latest gadgets and luxurious furniture. "Laura, what a surprise," she exclaimed, her voice dripping with feigned sweetness. "To what do I owe this pleasure?" I didn't beat around the bush. "I'm here about the money, Eleanor. The money Jack has been sending you." Her eyes widened momentarily, but she quickly regained her composure. "Oh, that. I've been having a hard time, dear. You understand, don't you?" "But Eleanor, these amounts are not small. And they're coming out of our savings. We have plans. We have dreams. You can't just expect Jack to fund your lifestyle." She let out a theatrical sigh, sitting down on her plush sofa. "You wouldn't understand, Laura. When you get to my age, the world seems so bleak. These little joys are all I have." "Little joys?" I was incredulous. "You're talking about thousands of dollars. Why isn't your own money enough?" "Life is expensive, my dear. And it's so lonely here, all alone." I felt a pang of sympathy, but it was overshadowed by frustration. Loneliness shouldn't be an excuse to exploit your son's generosity, and it certainly doesn't justify lying about your financial situation. "Exploit?" Her voice rose, a hint of anger now mixing with her previously calm demeanor. "I'm his mother. He owes me this much after all I've done for him." "No one owes anyone this kind of financial strain, Eleanor. There are other ways to find happiness that don't involve money." She scoffed, turning away from me. "You wouldn't understand. You're just his wife. I'm his mother. There's a bond you'll never comprehend." I stood up, feeling a mix of anger and determination. "Well, Eleanor, I'm going to make sure this stops. This isn't healthy for any of us, least of all Jack." As I left her house, my mind was racing. I knew this was far from over. I had to dig deeper, uncover the truth behind Eleanor's supposed financial woes. And I was determined to protect our future, no matter what it took. Eleanor's house always seemed to have new, expensive items. One day, as I was having coffee with her, I couldn't help but ask about a new painting on her wall. "Oh, this old thing?" she chuckled. "A small splurge to lift my spirits." "Seems like a lot of splurging lately," I prodded, trying to sound casual. "Laura, when you get to my age, you'll understand the need for little comforts." Her nonchalance irked me. It was clear she was living beyond the means of a supposedly struggling widow. I needed more information. So I decided to get close to one of her friends, Martha. "Lara, how nice to see you." Martha greeted me warmly when I invited her for lunch. "I've heard so much about you from Eleanor." "Really?" I smiled, stirring my coffee. "She talks about me?" "Oh, all the time. But between us," she leaned in, lowering her voice, "I worry about her sometimes." "Why's that?" "Well, she's got this secret stash, you know. I don't think Jack knows about it." My ears perked up. "Secret stash?" Martha nodded, sipping her drink. "Yes, she's quite the savvy investor. Made a killing in some stock, I heard." This was it. The piece of the puzzle I was missing. Eleanor had her own money, and yet she was bleeding us dry. I felt a surge of anger, but kept my cool. It was time to confront her again. I found Eleanor in her garden, pruning her roses. "Nice roses," I started. "Must be expensive to maintain such a garden." "Oh, Lara, you know I have to keep myself busy somehow." "I heard about your investments, Eleanor, the secret stash Martha mentioned." For a moment, she looked caught off guard, but she quickly regained her composure. "Investments?" Martha always had a wild imagination. "It's not imagination, Eleanor. You have your own money, yet you're taking from Jack and me. Why?" Her eyes narrowed. "My financial situation is none of your business, Lara." "It is when it affects my family. Jack believes he's helping you out of necessity, but you're just being greedy." "How dare you? I'm his mother. He's supposed to take care of me. I understand deceit and manipulation well enough, and I won't let you ruin our lives with it." She laughed coldly. "Good luck proving anything, dear. Jack will never believe you over me." After my chat with Eleanor and uncovering her secret wealth, things got real. I needed undeniable proof, so hiring a private investigator seemed like the next logical step. I met the PI, Mike, in a corner booth at a downtown diner, away from prying eyes. He slid a thick envelope across the table. "Found quite a bit on Eleanor, Lara. She's more than just a little savvy." My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside were bank statements showing large deposits, photos of Eleanor shopping at high-end stores, and receipts for items no struggling person would buy. My stomach churned with anger and disbelief. Her account's been active for years. Stocks, bonds, you name it. And these shopping sprees? They're just the tip of the iceberg. I pored over each document. The evidence was overwhelming. How could she do this? And how could Jack not see it? "People often see what they want to, Lara," Mike said, sipping his coffee. That night, I laid out all the evidence for Jack. His face was a mix of shock and denial as he looked through the papers. "This can't be right. My mom wouldn't do this. Jack, the evidence is right here. She's been living a life of luxury on our dime and hers." "But why would she need our money if she had all this?" His voice cracked with confusion. "That's the point, Jack. She doesn't need it. She's manipulating us." He paced back and forth, running his hands through his hair. I can't believe she'd lie to me. To us." I reached out, trying to bridge the gap his mother's deceit had created. "We can get through this, but you need to face the truth." Jack shook his head. "I need some air." He left, the door closing with a soft click that sounded like a chasm opening between us. The following days were a blur. Jack was distant, torn between the mother he thought he knew and the stark reality I'd shown him. I could see the struggle in his eyes, the way he'd look at me and then look away. I wasn't just sitting idle. I needed to protect our finances, our future. I started moving money around, securing our assets. If Eleanor was a storm, I was going to be the damn seawall. But the tension at home was thick. Meals were silent affairs, and conversations were clipped. Jack's usual warmth towards me had cooled into something distant, something strained. I lay in bed one night staring at the ceiling. Jack's steady breathing beside me felt miles away. I turned to him, his face just visible in the moonlight filtering through the blinds. "We'll get through this, Jack. But we need to face it together." He turned towards me, his eyes tired and lost. "I don't know what to believe anymore, Lara." I reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. "Believe in us, Jack. We can get past her lies." But as I lay there, his hand in mine, I wondered if we really could. Eleanor's web of deceit was tearing us apart, and I knew I had to act fast. The next move was crucial, and I was ready to play my hand. The next morning, I made a decision. I was going to confront Eleanor one last time. This time, I wouldn't be alone. I'd bring Jack, face to face with the truth. It was a gamble, but one I had to take for the sake of our marriage, our future. So I planned the confrontation, every word, every piece of evidence. I was ready to tear down the facade Eleanor had built. It was time to reveal the truth, come what may. So, after everything I'd learned, it was time for the big showdown. I arranged a family gathering, a nice public setting where Eleanor couldn't easily twist the narrative. And oh boy, did things escalate. As guests mingled in our living room, Eleanor glided in, all smiles and grace. I could feel my stomach knot up. Jack was already tense, his eyes darting between his mother and me. "I thought this was just a casual get-together, Lara," Eleanor said, sipping her wine. "I thought it was time we all had a heart-to-heart. About your finances." Her smile faltered for a moment, but she recovered quickly. "My finances? Whatever do you mean?" I glanced at Jack, who nodded slightly. It was time. I pulled out the folder, laying it on the coffee table. "These are your bank statements, Eleanor, and receipts for all the luxury items you've been buying, while claiming to be struggling." The room fell silent. Guests paused, drinks halfway to their lips, eyes wide. Eleanor's facade of calm wavered. "This is absurd, Lara. Are you accusing me of lying?" "Not accusing. Stating." She laughed, a brittle sound. "You expect people to believe this nonsense? I'm an old woman, living off the kindness of my son." "Kindness you manipulated out of him. You're not struggling, Eleanor. You've been leeching off us while sitting on a pile of money." Her eyes darted around the room, seeking an ally. But there was only silence. "This is ridiculous. I don't have to stand for this." But before she could leave, Jack stood up. "Mom, just tell the truth. Please." Her gaze on Jack was almost pitiful. "You believe her over your own mother?" "It's not about belief. It's about the truth. And the truth is right here." Eleanor's mask finally slipped. Anger, raw and unfiltered, flashed in her eyes. "Fine, I have money, but so what? I'm your mother. I raised you. You owe me." The room erupted in murmurs. Jack looked like he'd been punched. I could see the realization dawning in his eyes. "You don't owe you anything," I said firmly. "Especially not under false pretenses." Jack ran a hand through his hair, his voice strained. "I can't believe this. All these years." Eleanor tried to regain her composure, but the damage was done. Her voice was a hiss. "You'll regret this, Lara. You've turned my own son against me." "No, Eleanor, you did that all on your own." The party broke up quickly after that. Whispers filled the room as guests filed out, casting glances at Eleanor. She left with dignity, but the air of defeat clung to her. Jack was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry, Lara. I should have listened to you." I looked at him, my heart aching. "I needed you to see it for yourself. But I didn't. I let her come between us. It's not your fault, Jack. She's your mother. You wanted to believe the best in her." He reached for my hand, but I pulled away gently. "I need time, Jack. All of this has been too much." He nodded, his eyes sad. "I understand. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right." As I watched him walk away, a part of me wanted to run after him, to tell him it was okay. But another part, a stronger part, needed space. Eleanor's deception had caused a rift that wouldn't easily heal, and I wasn't sure if it ever would. In the aftermath, the first thing I did was take control of our finances. I sat down with Jack, both of us surrounded by papers and a sense of heavy resolve. "We need to separate our finances. It's for the best." He nodded, his face etched with regret. "I understand, Lara. Do what you need to do." I set up new accounts, redirected our paychecks, and created a budget that was just mine. It felt empowering, taking control like this. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Eleanor's social standing took a nosedive. Friends who once flocked to her lavish parties now crossed the street to avoid her. Her once prized status in our community evaporated overnight. I heard about it from a mutual acquaintance. "Eleanor? Oh, she's practically a pariah now. Nobody wants to associate with her after what she did." Jack and I tried counseling. Sitting in that room, with a therapist gently prodding at the wounds that had been opened, I realized something. Some things can't be fixed. "You seem distant, Lara. Are you willing to work on this relationship?" The therapist's voice was soft, but her words cut through me. I don't know if I can. Too much has happened. Jack's face crumpled. "I'll do anything, Lara, please." I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. It's not just about doing, it's about what's already been done. In the end, I made the hardest decision of my life. I chose to leave. Jack pleaded, promised change, but something inside me had shifted irreversibly. It's not just about your mother, Jack. It's about us, about what we've become. I can't live in the shadow of what's happened. Leaving our home, our life together, was like stepping off a cliff. But when my feet hit the ground, I realized I could stand on my own. In the months that followed, I found peace in the simple things. A coffee enjoyed in solitude, a book read without interruption, a night's sleep untroubled by the worry of betrayal. I found a new place, small but mine. Decorating it, choosing each piece, was a declaration of my newfound independence. One evening, as I sat on my balcony, the city lights twinkling like distant stars, I reflected on everything that had happened. "You've come a long way, Lara," I whispered to myself. In that moment, I knew I had found something precious, a sense of self, unbroken and strong. I had weathered the storm, and now I was my own safe harbor. Life moved on. I heard Jack was doing better, working on himself. Eleanor, well, I didn't hear much about her, but that chapter of my life was closed. I wished them well, in my own way. Sitting there, a cool breeze playing with my hair, I realized I was